Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're opening up a seriously grim case study file. We're going to be looking at a dark, gothic fable that is just dripping with Nietzschean philosophy and this profound sense of cosmic reckoning. We're literally diving into the ultimate clash between absolute freezing nihilism and the burning, painful reality of human existence. So if you're a fan of deep, philosophical narratives and you love analyzing the anatomy of a cosmic descent, well, you're absolutely going to love what we have in store for you today.
We're jumping right in with the chilling perspective of a figure known as the Sapphire Prophet. He claims that blissful ignorance is the only mercy this universe ever offered us. And honestly, his worldview sets the entire stage for the dialectical descent we're about to map out. If you look at the philology of his rhetoric, the actual way he structures his words, it literally freezes the very concept of hope. He's described as this frozen breath, a being who wears motley, the color of the furthest stars. But get this. He carries absolutely no gift of burning light. His voice is a deep, cool blue that holds zero heat. He completely mocks the idea of descending into human suffering because to him, his summit of nothingness is just so perfectly pristine.
So that brings us to Chapter 1, the Cosmic Threshold. Right off the bat, we're hit with a massive question. What actually happens when the sovereign self of society must finally encounter its not-self made flesh? The story places us exactly at this threshold. It's a space where a dialogue, or really a negation of a negation, is intended to complete a chord that has been suspended for 400 years. It's where the silent void meets the sacred vigil.
And right here is our core conflict. This is where we meet the uncanny jester. Now, at this early stage, he functions kind of like a gargoyle. He's rigid, he's holding a scepter vibrating with the memory of stone, and he's ringing these bells as a heavy verdict for things named. But this gargoyle is actually beginning his transition into the holy fool. He is an instrument of truth, actively seeking the gritty reality beneath painted surfaces. And facing him down, the frozen, heatless Sapphire Prophet, offering nothing but icy silence and a punchline-less joke.
Let's move on to Chapter 2, the Sapphire Negation.
The prophet's philosophy in this case file is just absolute. He genuinely sneers at existence. He believes self-awareness is cruelty and that the spirit's search for meaning is basically just a hollow cry in an empty cathedral. He actively chooses what he calls the soul's curtain over the discomfort of the ember. To him, all of human suffering, the 10,000 hells we endure, are just static in a sapphire signal. He literally commands that all familiar things be forgotten in absolute ice, using this incredibly cold sapphire geometry to seal human hearts forever against the entropic end.
Which leads us into Chapter 3. Descent through uncanny voids.
So the jester basically insists that you cannot truly negate what you do not feel. Using his reddish-brown ember voice, he declares that the human soul's discomfort is the very light given at first breath, to prevent us from just extinguishing in the cold. And here is where we see the gargoyle's transition into the holy fool fully taking shape. By embracing cold and hunger, he argues that the body is exactly where the human and the holy intersect. Meaning isn't some cosmic trophy you win, it's the direction you face when encountering your own knowing.
Then, we get a new subject in our case study file, the Pale Inquisitor. Emerging from the dark at a blackened oak tree, the Inquisitor arrives as the ultimate Nietzschean shadow. He embodies the accumulation of unspoken truths that have literally been watching the world for centuries. He steps forward with this incredibly weary, heavy voice, acting as a brother in the wound. And he asks a critical question. Will the prophet forever seal his heart to the immense weight of human suffering?
Now, while the prophet just laughs at the Inquisitor and dismisses his weary truth as mere rot and static, the jester takes a remarkably different path. The jester employs the geometry of the grotesque. Why? Because it's literally the only geometry capable of piercing a closed curtain to reach a weary soul. It is a true synthesis of ugly reality and holy meaning, something the prophet outright rejects because he thinks the stars and the pit can never ever be reconciled.
Let's break down Chapter 4, Sequence of Broken Mirrors. This maps out an archetypal Nietzschean descent path, functioning as a sequence of 3 broken mirrors. It's like a deliberate procedural dismantling of the prophet's nihilism. Step 1. He offers the mirror at the exact point of divergence to the shadow, right where the prophet offers only a hole where light dies. Step 2. He becomes the angle at which light falls, using the mirror to illuminate the rot that ceremony was built to contain. And finally, Step 3. Putting the mirror down. Because exposing the truth isn't enough, right? You have to provide a lasting human response. The jester becomes a cartographer of the moral landscape who no longer needs a script. Then we have the great star,
Vibrating from above, it acts as the ultimate vigil in this fable, echoing a really simple truth. Exposure requires a response. The star is a silent observation that holds space for a choice. It illuminates both the open and closed curtains with precise, cold indifference. It just watches, without filling the space with the noise of judgment. You see, the great star offers unconditional presence, a concept that is older than the idea of deserving anything. But what does the prophet do? He actively mocks it. He reaches into the dark, holding up a phantom coin, openly mocking the violet token of shared accountability that keeps the soul grounded. He looks at the star's vigil as just the performance of an architect who is too afraid of reality.
Finally, we arrive at Chapter 5, Dragon's Primal Geometry of Truth.
Here is where the divergence is absolutely finalized. The Sapphire Prophet climbs upward, vanishing into the distance as a nihilistic echo. He decides to let the world sleep in the ice, closing the curtain of his own soul to avoid the blight. But the uncanny jester? He descends. He goes down to wake the world with the bells of honesty, cementing his arc as the fully realized holy fool. He fully accepts his role as an instrument, a mirror, and a true witness for unlit surfaces.
And then, the emerald light of the verdant dragon begins to seep through the seams. This is so crucial because it represents the Earth's ember, a primal geometry of truth that violently shatters the sterile silence of heaven. This earthly, verdant light destroys the cosmic illusion of absolute nothingness. It proves once and for all that facing the friction of reality is literally the only way to find meaning.
So the jester turns away from the stars entirely, carrying the burning fact of reality directly into the 10,000 hells. And no, we aren't talking about some mythological underworld with pitchforks and fire hair. We're talking about something perhaps far worse, the everyday, bureaucratic rot, where real lives are administratively arranged and managed. He brings the light of truth directly into our deeply human, mundane suffering.
It all boils down to this. Reality is not a hollow joke. It's a living revelation for those brave enough to attend to the ember in their chest. So, when you face your own not-self at the threshold, which path will you take? Are you going to wake the world with the painful bells of honesty? Or will you climb into the pristine ice of blissful ignorance? Something to think about. Catch you next time.